98% of dudes rapping, they ain't nice as me. 98% ain't live the same type of life as me. The judge gave me life and then they sent me where the life is be. That level 4 with depth and vice, the type of stuff they like to see. Two choices, fight or flee. I refuse to die a chump. I never been a mark, but damn, it's scary when that riot jump. I seen dudes cry, get pumped, and some sexually brutalized. Knew a dude who lost his life and he was only doing 5 year-long racial fights when homie all you do is ride. Lonely days and nights up in a hole causing suicide. From the moment you arrive, you see the Mexican mafia, AB skinheads with big giant swastikas, pro-black philosophers, the BGF, the Kumi, and Muslims who will murk you from the nation to the Sunni. That MS was loony, quick to ride up on they rival. Even Christians went to church, hide knives up in a Bible. Political and tribal, the Crips and Damus, the Long Beach, the Hubs and the Dubs and the Grooves, the IE, the Bakersfield, the Dago Pyrus, the Hustlers quick to roll, the gangsters don't move.
Say, what's cracking, YouTube? It's your boy 16 to Life, and I'm back like I'm on a parole violation. Yard down! For those of y'all that's new to my page, in 1994, I got arrested. I was eventually sentenced to 16 years plus life, and I served 24 years straight in the California prison system. Yeah, that's me gassing on that intro song right there. And if you want to get that song, you can purchase it on a 10-song EP that you get directly from me on a digital download link. If you're interested, hit me up on my email, 16tolifemusic@gmail.com, Cashapp, PayPal, or Zelle me $20. I'm going to get it to you ASAP. If you want to check out more of my music, go to my YouTube playlist, scroll down to gas stations, or type in 16 to Life gas stations, and you can hear much more of my music there. So this video right here, I'm going to be talking about the first time I seen somebody try to blast somebody out their boots in prison. So this took place in Salinas Valley on the DR, man. I want to say probably maybe September somewhere in 96, because I didn't get to prison until July of 1996. And so just so happened, the individual who I seen try to blast this other dude up out of his boots, we was in Tehachapi together. Now what Tehachapi is, at that point in time, Tehachapi is another prison in California, but at that point in time, Tehachapi was a reception center, meaning that when you leave the county jail, once you're sentenced to your time, they'll send you to a prison that is known as a reception center. Then eventually you'll see your counselor. Your case will be accessed, diagnosed, so on and so forth. They'll determine what type of security yard they're going to send you to, and then they send you to that yard. You know, in California, they have level 1, level 2, level 3, level 4. Each level is a higher level of security. And the way it's determined in California, by what level of security is you're going to be going to. At that time, they had like a point system. They still have the point system now, right? And so depending on your crime, you would get so many points. Your prior criminal history, they would give you so many points. If you hadn't finished high school, they would add points. If you had been to the military, you know, they would deduct points. That type of thing. You know, if you had been in trouble before, you'd get points. All these different type of things, right? And then, of course, how much time you were sentenced to, and how, you know, how violent they felt your crime was. All these type of things determine eventually how many points that you would, you know, how many points they would give you, and then they determine where you was going to go. At that time, when I was going to reception center, a lot of individuals was getting sent to New Folsom, where they had that riot at, or Salinas Valley. So it just so happened in the group that I went in, individuals were starting to get sent to Salinas Valley. Some of my homies and some of the dudes who I was there with got sent to Folsom and got caught up in that riot. You know, one of the dudes who I was in Tehachapi with, that I had knew from the county jail, I did a story on him. He was called Dan Tanner from Long Beach Insane, the biggest Crip I ever saw. He ended up going to New Folsom. So anyway, the individual who I would later see blast somebody out of their boots, he was only, I believe, 18 or 19. He happened to be from a gang in Los Angeles, right? And the cold part about him is he really didn't even have enough points to go to a level 4. But due to the fact that he had been to YA before, YA, for those who don't know, who are not from California, is basically, what it really is CYA, California Youth Authority. And it's basically like a prison for juveniles, and I don't know what age group it starts at, maybe 14, 15. I'm not quite sure, but I know it goes up to the age of 25, right? And due to the fact he had been there, they gave him an override. I think he only had 49 points. I believe at that time you had to have 51 points to be eligible to go to a level 4, right? So his counselor overrode him, I guess, just due to his juvenile criminal history, right? And so the prison that they were sending us to was Salinas Valley, level 4, and it was a 180. So, you have a 270 design, and then you have the 180 design. The 180 design is more secure, it's less movement, and it's definitely more violent. For the most part, a level 180 is kind of like a shoe kick out. So if you had been to the shoe and you went to the shoe for violence, or maybe stabbing somebody or things of that nature, right? Once you come out of the shoe, you initially be sent to a level 4. So it was definitely a violent place, right? And so then keep in mind, this is 1996. This is right at the start of the 3 strikes. So you have a lot of individuals, going there maybe with 170 to life, 80 to life, 95 for life. A lot of these dudes, for a lot of crimes, when just 3 or 4 years ago, they may have only gotten 10 years, maybe 5 years, maybe 15, 20 years. But due to the 3 strikes law and their prior prison history, a lot of times they was getting enhancements, getting their sentence doubled up, tripled up. And so it was a lot of dudes there, just feeling angry, feeling mad at the world, dudes having all this time because of these 3 sentence laws. And so it was really off the chain, right? So the dude, man, like I said, we was at Tehachapi together. So we both, found out that we was going to Salinas Valley. We talked a little bit at Tehachapi, right? And actually, I remember we was at Tehachapi, and there was this older dude kind of messing with him, or I don't know, they had kind of got into it. Now, when I say older dude, this dude was probably at least in his late 50s to 60s. He didn't gangbang, and for whatever reason, him and this dude had some type of altercation. So the dude was also cool with Dan Tanner. Now, Dan Tanner was really with the business, man. And Dan Tanner didn't mind if you was 4'2" or 6'9". If he didn't like you and y'all got into it, it was on and cracking. And he wasn't caring about a dude being old, or whatever. If you was gonna get disrespectful and get out of line, he didn't matter. You know what I'm saying? So I remember him pushing up on the dude who had some words with the individual who I seen attempt to blast his homeboy out of his boots, right? I believe they was cellies. And, DT went over there, man, and let him know pretty much, hey, man, if you mess with the homie again or whatever, I will have you up in here. So, fast forward, right? So we get moved to Tehachapi. And so when we get to Tehachapi, when we leave Tehachapi and we get to Salinas Valley, the D yard is just now opening up. This prison is new. This is a new prison, right? So when I go into the cell, the very first cell I get into is still sawdust and screws and stuff, because they had just finished creating the cell and so on and so forth. So that's how new it was, right? The yard is just starting to be filled in with individuals being busted from different prisons and stuff, right? So now the dude who I catch the chain with, who ends up being the first person that I seen, and I honestly want to say it was the first sticking on that yard, right? If I honestly want to say that if my memory serves me right. So we get there. Now, the cold part about that situation is when we get there, the dude who he ends up later on blasting is already there. And they was from the same hood. So when he finds out he has a younger homie there, because the dude who he tried to blast was older, right? I believe probably in his mid-30s, somewhere around there. But so when we first get there and the older dude finds out he has a younger homie, he brings him a little care package. He brings him stuff like, lotion, hairbrush, toothpaste, hair grease, some shoes and stuff, things that get him situated until his property arrives or until he goes to the store. Because when you're transferred from one prison to another in California, your property is under the bus, and you may not get it for a week. You might get it in 3 or 4 days. You might not get it for 2 or 3 weeks. It all depends how it's being passed out, right? So that was the cold part about it. He brought him out a care package. They talked, he embraced him, and it was his first time to prison too, the dude who had caught the chain with me. So, up until this situation happened, they're walking around the yard. I'm sure the older dude is giving the younger dude the ropes about, being in prison, doing time in prison, so on and so forth. Now, these two dudes who are walking around laughing and talking or whatever, they are from a relatively larger gang. Neither one of these dudes, being from where they're from, would ever hit a prison yard and not have homies on that yard. You know, they are from a, like I said, a relatively larger gang, right? So time is going on, right? Because I remember initially I got up there, I was in the cell with a dude from Venice Showline, and then he was cool, but he snored a whole lot, so I had to get up out of there. Then I moved in the cell with another dude who was a Christian and didn't like me in there playing my rap. He was around, me and him was around the same age. So then I end up moving in the cell with Big H from Compton. Rest in peace, Big Heron. Every time I say his name, a lot of people will confuse him with the Big Heron, I guess, who used to function and be a part of Suge Knight's Death Row. No, I'm not talking about that Heron. The one I'm talking about is Big H. He was a Crip from the Grandies. Well respected, well loved. You know, you'll hear a lot of people mention him on YouTube. In these prison genres and you know, talking about the streets of LA and Compton and so on and so forth, right? At that time, he had probably already been down 16, 17 years. So, you know, I moved in the cell with him, right? And so he was well respected on that yard due to his reputation and due to him being the individual that he was already, right? So a lot of times, a lot of information would be sent to him about things that's going to happen on the yard, or just people trying to get his opinion on should I do this or should I do that, because like I said, he was well loved, well respected, and he was well knowledgeable about prison politics, right? So so these two individuals, you know, they're walking around, they're buddy, they're laughing and joking every day and, you know, whatever, hanging out like homies do. And suddenly, for whatever reason, it comes down the pipeline, man, that the dude has violated and did something, and he has to get blasted on, right? So cold part about it, they give the mission to the dude who I'd caught the chain with, his younger homie, you know. So now, it's a cold situation. I think I spoke on this before, right? A lot of times when an individual is getting ready to get hit, everybody on the whole entire yard will know it except for him, you know. And because a lot of times, you know, people will give information to other cars like, hey, man, we getting ready to, you know, blast this dude or whatever, you know, so on and so forth. And then one race made let another race know, just out of common courtesy, hey, man, you know, today on second yard, such and such is going to happen. We getting ready to do this. So if you happen to see a commotion over here, this is what's going on. And you give other cars and other races a head up. That way, you won't have any mishaps or misunderstandings. Maybe somebody look over there and, you know, maybe think something's going on with one of their homies. Everybody will be aware of what's going on. And also just to let people know, so when the yard goes down, and sometimes when people get stabbed, sometimes they just check the little area that it happens in. Sometimes they check the whole entire area. So you may not want to be on the yard with any contraband. But, you know, once the word has been passed, you know, if you're on the yard with some contraband, then, you know, that's up to you or whatever. So it's just a mutual respect thing that a lot of races and cars do and share information with each other, right? They may not necessarily say who the target is, but they'll let you know something is getting ready to happen, right? So now, so Big H, by, you know, him getting this information, he lets me know, me and him are cellies, right? So I hear about it and I'm thinking like, damn, this is a cold thing, you know, because keep in mind, I'm new to prison. And at that time, well, not at that time, but at that time, I'm from a small town, right? I grew up, born and raised in the city of Banning, California. A one high school town, right? So a lot of the people who I grew up with and started going to Head Start with, kindergarten, first grade, we graduated from high school, right? So, you know, to me, we're all a big family, me and my homies, you know, till this day. So I'm thinking like, man, this is a cold situation, man. You know, one of your own homeboys is gonna blast you. And like I said, this is really my first introduction to real prison politics, right? So it's supposed to happen that day on the yard. So we come outside and stuff. We're walking around. I'll never forget, man. Now, back then, when people would, because they have a toilet on the outside yard, a bathroom, right? Now, it's a little like a urinal and also a toilet, you know. And of course, you didn't have many people sitting down taking a dump on the level 2, but of course, taking a number 2 on the 4-yard, but you would have people go over there and use the bathroom. It was always accustomed to, when somebody's going to the bathroom, you would have at least one, if not 2 or 3 of his homies go with him and keep usalama on him. Usalama is a Swahili word which means security, and so while this dude is using the bathroom facing this way, you have 2 or 3 dudes standing behind him, that way he can have his, not necessarily his privacy, but he can use the bathroom and not be vulnerable, while his back is to pretty much the yard and stuff like that, right? And so these 2 individuals happen to go to they happen to go over there and use the bathroom, right? And so while the dude who was going to blast this dude about his boots, while he's using the bathroom, the dude that he's going to hit is keeping usalama on him, man. It's securing his back, and basically, ensuring his safety, right? And so I'm standing over there like up against the wall, and I'm just looking and I'm thinking to myself, man, this is a cold situation, right? Now, for whatever reason, it didn't happen that day. So the next that same night, my silly Big H, and he used to kind of like talk almost like in a whisper. Hey, yeah, that's all. He gonna get him tomorrow. He gonna get him tomorrow. So the next day we come out right now. The next day I'm trying to go to the store. Now, in order to go to the store on a level 4 180, you have to go behind the wall. They have a main yard, and then they have a it's behind the wall, and in order to go back there, you have to go back there and get searched. It's a little like door they have to open. You have to get patted down. You have to go get searched. Now, behind that wall, they have the canteen, they have the doctor, they have the chapel, things of that nature, right? So I go out there, I make it to the store, I come back. Now, when I come back from the store, I never forget, it was a dude from Chicago. He used to do the 3-card Monty. Now, when I was in Montana, I used to see dudes do that all the time, so I knew that was a trick, a trick not to get caught up in. So I'm watching this dude, and this was his hustle. His name was Chicago, and he would, he would stand outside the gate while dudes was waiting to go to the store, and he would bet them that they couldn't pick the right card, right? And so while dudes was waiting to go to the store, he's doing all this stuff. Sometimes he may run dudes up, $50, $100 or whatever. So now when they go to the store, they owe him money. So he's doing all this type of stuff with the cards, and I'm watching him, right? I'm just watching. I know not to participate in this mess, right? I'm sharper than that. So as I've seen him do it, all of a sudden he bends a card with his finger. And he shuffles and tells the dude, hey, man, get the card. So now I'm watching. I didn't see him bend the card. I said, now, even though I know not to get involved, I said, oh, man, I know what card it is. He said, you sure? I said, yeah. I said, he asked me how much I want to bet. I was $5 or $10 or whatever it was. So I picked the bent card. I turn it over, man. And it was another card. The dude was that sharp. He had fixed that card that quick and bent another one. So right after I said, oh, damn, man, and he like, okay, man, you going to have my money? I said, yeah, on the next unlock, I got to go in. I got to get it or whatever it was, right? And so as I'm standing on the wall before the bet and he's doing his shuffle, I'm continuously glancing down at the individual who's supposed to blast his homies. At this time, they're over there up against the wall where the Crips hang out, right? Now, one dude, the dude he's supposed to blast is standing on his left. And so he's nervous. I see him fidgeting with his pocket. He's, you can tell he's clearly nervous. This is his first time. He's like 18, 19. He's fidgeting with his pocket. He's going in and out. He's going in and out. So now as I'm watching the dudes do the cards, I'll glance down there at him. I'm watching the dude play the cards. When I glance down, by the time I glanced up, he was in the hitting motion and bam, he hit the dude. Now the dude he hit was maybe like 5'10". I want to say 215, 225 maybe. You could tell he was stocky. You could tell he used to work out, and then he had just got a little fat, got a little pudgy, but he still was big. The dude who hit him was only maybe 5'8". Maybe 5'9", maybe about 150, 155, maybe, he was a smaller dude. I'm thinking he fits to tear this dude up after he hit him. Man, the dude that got hit grabbed the knife out his neck and took off running. He ran down to the building, went to kick it on the door. Boom, 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 kick it on the door. Finally, the guard that's in the building, because they also have a little, almost kind of like the tower that you see. they have a tower, like a tower and a window at the back of each building. And so the dude that's also watching the building can come to the back, look out and look over the yard and see what's going on. So that dude came out there. Obviously the dude must have told him, hey man, I just got stabbed or whatever. He opened up the door, let the dude in the building. Once the dude goes in the building, maybe 30 seconds, a minute later, he hit the alarm. Yard down, yard down, yard down. So now everybody gets down, right? So now, of course, they got, police running down there to the building, because when you're in a building and the dude hits the alarm in the building, a light goes off on the top of that building, so the guards on the yard can know what building to respond to. And so they start running down there. So everybody's down 15, 30 minutes or whatever. They have a golf cart. Golf cart drives down there. It's a golf cart, but it kind of serves as a, like a ambulance or whatever, lightweight ambulance, depending on how bad or not the individual was hurt. Then you have a couple of prison nurses. They go down there. MTAs is what they call if they respond to the situation. So they go down there. They go into the building. They stay in the building maybe 5 or 10 minutes. Who knows, man? Then they put the dude. They obviously had loaded the dude onto the golf cart or whatever, and he comes out on a stretcher. And he's laid down with his neck all wrapped up. And they drive him across the yard and back in between that little gate that I told you where people got to go to the store. And after I saw that, that's when I realized, like, damn, this is a cold, treacherous place that I'm in, man, because up until then, to keep it 100, I wasn't necessarily fearful of being in prison due to two reasons. One is because I had sat in the county jail for about 2 years fighting my case. And so in the course of being in the county jail, I'm down there fighting. I'm going through a whole lot. I'm seeing people fighting and so on and so forth, right? So I ain't never been afraid to fight, right? So I'm pretty much thinking, okay, this is easy. I can handle all of this, right? And then also when I get to prison, Salinas Valley, like I told you guys, was a new prison. It had just been built. And so it's one of these newer design prisons. So it didn't look nothing like I imagined prison was going to look. Like I had a visual in my mind from seeing all these prison films where it was going to be bars and maybe 4 or 5 tiers of people just hollering and screaming and all that. Now, had I seen something like that, I definitely would have been shook. But when I walked onto the prison yard, the first thing it kind of reminded me of was a college campus. And then, like I said, too, the yard was new. People was filling in. It wasn't that many people even on the yard at the time. So I had no idea, since that was my first time in prison, how dangerous it really was. But then once I seen that first stabbing, and then of course I'm in the cell with Big H, he's making knives and stuff all the time, and all these kites is coming through. That's when I realized, like, damn, man, this is an extremely treacherous situation, man. So anyway, yeah. And so the individual, matter of fact, so the dude who blasted his homeboy, man, and after he did that, he must have passed the knife off to somebody else, and him and another one of his homies, they spent off and started walking the track. So by the time the dude ran down there, knocked on the door and got up in there, the dude was way around on the other side of the track. So they put the yard down, and they, I don't even recall them doing a search since he had got hit in the building, right? I'm pretty sure they probably did. I just don't recall it. But the dude who blasted the dude, he definitely got away with it, right? Now, remember that I told you guys too that they had overrode him. He really didn't even have level 4 points. He only had 49 points, and you have to have 51 points to be on a level 4. But I remember when we rode the bus, right? Me and him both was pretty gun-ho about getting out, man. Like I said, he was only 18 or 19, and he had 15 to life, right? Once we hit the yard, we was talking. When we first got there, another dude pushed up on us, Looney from Venice Showline, and he asked us, hey man, how much time y'all got? We both told him we got life. He said, you got life? You got life? We both said, yeah. He said, oh man, y'all ain't never gonna get out. Y'all gonna be on the yard all day here with me, because when he asked us if we had life, the dude who blasted his homie, he said, oh yeah, man, I only got 15 in life though. He said, so I'll probably be out in 14, 15 years or something like that, right? Because I remember on the bus when we was riding the bus up there, he was like, oh yeah, you know, I'm 18, 19 or however old he was. He's like, man, I'll be out by the time I'm 34, 35 or whatever the particular math was. You know, me and him both not knowing at that time they was not letting lifers, even if you had life with the possibility of parole, you was not getting parole, man. So once the dude told that, I know my heart dropped. Once the dude Looney from Venice Showline told us we was never getting out. Y'all gonna be walking the track with me forever. You know, I know my heart dropped, and I'm pretty sure old boy's heart dropped, man. And so a couple of years later, when my points dropped and I went down to Ironwood, the dude who blasted his homie, who initially only had 49 points, had got into so much trouble. He had somewhere around 80 points, you know, and points are hard to come off because in order to get points off, they only take 8 points off a year, and that's if you have a job and you stay out of trouble. So anytime you get points and then you're going to lose your job, and so you might not get a job for another year or two, right? So it's very, very hard to lose points in prison when you are getting in trouble, and especially like I said, when you get in trouble, you go on A2B status, and if you're a lifer, you're not going to get a job. They was going to put people who because back then people was getting day for day, you know, people who didn't have life. So of course they were on the list. They prioritized them, giving those guys jobs because they were going home. So as a lifer, you may sit around 3 or 4 years if you don't actively pursue trying to get a job. If you don't go talk to certain people, say, hey man, can I get a job? You got a spot for me up in here? If you just sit back and wait for them to get a job, you literally could be without a job 3 or 4 years, right? So by the time I left, man, this dude had ran his points up like to 80, 90 points, man. I never did see him again, and I never did see the dude he blasted again. Now, funny thing, I did run across C. Looney, the homie C. Looney from Venice Showline again, man. I ran across him on a 2-yard right before I paroled. And so I talked to him recently as well. He actually ended up getting out as well, man. He's out there free, doing this thing, working, staying out of trouble, man. So shout out to C. Looney as well, man. So anyway, you already know what it is. It's your boy 16 to life. Resume normal program.